Good morning, Linett. How you doing? You well?
I'm great, thank you, Joe.
Good. We're here to talk about Carnival 2022. We are outside, Linett, back outside, on the road, as they say. I know you wear a few hats where Carnival is concerned. So do you want to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Linett Kamala. I've been involved in the Notting Hill Carnival since childhood, like a lot of people. And I actually was one of the first girl DJs there back in the 1980s with a sound system called This Year Generation. It is still going, and I'm still with that sound to this day. So over the past couple of years, I've taken over managing that sound system. And my other hat is that I'm one of the board directors for the Notting Hill Carnival.
Not too many women advocate for the sound system culture at Carnival. I've written a few articles on women in the space, and there is not too many. All right, especially in your position. So hat off. Talk about the challenges involved in delivering a carnival from that perspective alone.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, as I say, I've always been around particularly with the sound system. We just take that as one aspect of it, and from DJing to mainly becoming more focused on looking after the crowd, security, keeping everyone safe, because it is such a huge, as you can imagine, operation, a free-flowing event which has up to 1.5 to 2 million people over the August bank holiday weekend. With, as I say, it's not a ticketed event. It's not that type of event where you can necessarily control who comes in and out. So we have to manage everyone. Everyone's welcome, but it has its challenges. And for me, particularly during the lockdown, when we had the whole thing with COVID and everything stopped, and being one of the board directors, we had to make that really difficult decision, but it was the right decision at the time, to not be on the streets for all the reasons that we now know about. It just gave me an opportunity actually to kind of just look a bit more at what was happening around the sound system. So all the usual kind of promoters and people who would have perhaps been around, well, we weren't on the streets, so they weren't interested. And I was like, well, we need to be visible. What's going to happen? We can't just not exist. So that's when I said to Temps, Michael Temple, who's the founder of This Year Generation Sound System, I was like, do you know what? Let me see what I can do. I'm not from that world, so to speak. I'm not into entertainment necessarily. I'm an artist, I guess, by profession, a visual artist. But I just stepped up, and one of the things was to take part in the online activities that the Notting Hill Carnival put on. So I was the first to say, yes, This Year Generation will do the live streams, we'll do the live trailers for the events. We're trying to bring a vibe to an audience that you can't even see, right? It was a very weird and strange time. But I just jumped straight into it with enthusiasm. I organised an online event as well with the DJs, and we live streamed that during the carnival, what would have been the carnival weekend. And it was really well received. And I just learned a lot about what it takes to kind of put a sound system on the streets. And there's a lot of work involved. So one of the number one things for me was sponsorship, right? Everyone thinks it's carnival's free. Yes, it is free in a way, you don't pay, but hang on a minute. Security, the stage, costumes, all of these aspects, storage for a sound system throughout the year, it's got to be paid for. And like everyone, we were hard hit when everything stopped. So that was one of the challenges for me as well. And I think it's one of the ongoing challenges for this huge cultural event that we have, that everyone loves, right? Everyone says, oh, it's amazing. But really, I'm just as guilty. I was part of it, always been a part of it. And I never really paid attention to how it was funded. Imagine. And I'm part of one of the biggest sound systems.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't follow the money. That's kind of one of the things I do all the time, actually. So I can't imagine, but I do get it. It's about structure, and I guess the last 2 years have allowed for that structure to be revised and tightened. Your first ever carnival memory, what was it?
Yeah, so that would have been me, probably about under 5 years old, being carried on my father's shoulders. So my family settled originally in the Notting Hill area, and then like a lot of people kind of just moved to the neighbouring area, which was Kensal Rise. And so there's different entry points into Notting Hill Carnival, and one of the spectacular ones is when you come off the Harrow Road up to Ladbroke Grove, and the top there, it's like a hill. And so I just remember being a child on my dad's shoulders, because obviously I was too small to be amongst the crowd, and just seeing what seemed to be like a sea of, it felt like millions to me, I guess, as a child. and just all these people, and particularly Black people as well. You know, it was so noticeable for me. I think like, oh wow, there's so many people who've got the same look like me, and you just heard the sounds. I just remember this heavy beeline. You know, you could feel that. I remember the sensation of just the kind of noise, the noise level of voices, whistles, and things like that. And it was a full sensory experience. I also remember the smells, you know, all the kind of like cooking and barbecue smells. And it is just, you know, literally never forgotten it. It was like that memory, just think, oh my goodness, what is this? Took a deep breath and was kind of relieved I was on my father's shoulders. And just the joy, like that was the other thing that stuck with me, was that everyone was just so happy. And the streets, those regular streets, they were just transformed, you know, and I was like, wow. So it's never left me. And then, like everyone, I had that rites of passage when you finally are allowed, as a teenager, I guess, to attend Carnival by yourself. So, you know, that was a very special moment. And I still remember the sound systems I would go to. So it was Mastermind for me, and they're still there. And, you know, and now to kind of be peers and talk, you know, friends with people like Lewis, who runs this, like, to me, it's like a dream. You know, they were like my heroes. We'd look up to them. They were just so brilliant with what they did for music and the culture at the time. And yeah, just being able to then experience it from that point of view. And yeah, it's a big, it can be at times a big scary space. So you need to know what you're doing. I've gone through that thing of where you've lost your friends, you know, the people you've gone with, and you've become separated from your group, all of those kind of things that happen. But as I say, it's never left me. Once the carnival bug bites you, as they say, that's it, you know. And seeing those, you know, amazing costumes and the music and the steel pans, oh my goodness.
Yeah, losing your friends, the pre-mobile phone dilemma, right?
Exactly.
Something that was bound to happen, and everybody just kind of managed to navigate through.
Yeah. And even now, Joe, right, even with mobile phones, they don't really work, do they? You don't really get a reception at Carnival. So I think that aspect, if you don't have a plan, you have to have a plan, right, of where to meet.
Yeah, have a rendezvous point, people, just in case, right? Battery dead or no reception. What are you looking forward to most from this year then? Obviously, you're involved as an organizer. Yeah. There's certain stresses and strains that come with that. But there's also that satisfaction, right? What are you most looking forward to?
I mean, on a very basic, simple level, it is everyone returning to the streets where we belong. You know, as I said, I don't know if you know the history of the event. Then maybe it's worth me explaining that, Joel, yeah, just to say to people, because again, like a lot of people, I had to find out, I had to do my research. I just took things for granted like we all do. And I had no idea about, even though my parents settled from Jamaica, came to the Notting Hill area, I do remember my father talking about the fights they would have with the racists at the time. You know, there was these Teddy boys, and they didn't accept the Caribbean community settling in to actually what was at the time a very rundown, it had some of the worst housing in the whole of the UK, where the bombs landed, that was still, the rubble was still there. So in a way, that was why they were able to rent, and that was the only housing that Black people could get at the time. So I do remember being told those stories of the tensions and the race fight, you know, the fighting that went on. And this escalated in 1959, where Kelso Coltrane, an aspiring lawyer from Antigua, he was returning, he'd hurt his thumb, he was coming back from hospital, walking down those streets, and was set upon by a group of white youths and was murdered. And the outpouring of, you know, sorrow and rage on the streets of Ladbroke Grove, there was like marches that took place. Claudia Jones, who is credited with setting up the first indoor Caribbean Carnival, helped to raise funds for the case. To this day, they haven't solved that murder case, imagine. Yeah, everyone in the area said they knew who did it, right? And then it was a woman called Ronnie Laslett, who was a local in Ladbroke Grove on Paris Square, a social worker. She did so much with young people. She was a Native American, part Russian local, who came up with the idea, said, you know what, we need to bring everyone together, and let's do that with a children's parade. And that was how it started, a little kind of children's fair. And she then invited the Trinidadian steel panists to come involved, right? Had Sterling and all the others who brought that vibe. And that's how it kind of just started to grow. People started following the steel pans, and look where we are today, right? A small procession that started with about 50 children in costume to where we are now, which is incredible cultural, with a Caribbean flavor to this day, you know?
Yeah, no, it's an integral part of London, the UK, Europe, and obviously the second biggest street party in the world. So
that's right.
Yeah, it's left an indelible mark if you want to.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. As I say, that whole thing of us returning to the streets. Every year, like, I do interviews and I get that tired question, right? People want us. I'll get it out there from now, Joe. Like, is it going to be moved into a park? Is it going to be too big?
You never hear me ask you that.
No, I know you're not going to ask that.
Go on.
You know it. You know that conversation that people are worried about, people ask about. And that's why I always bring the history in. Once you understand and know the history, there is no debate about that. You understand exactly what it's about, why we're there. It's a taking up space. It's a unity thing. It's about us being present. And even though now, it's like one of the most, I guess, in terms of real estate, the houses, the properties, it's gone from this, derelict, rundown with lots of squats, etc., to now the most desirable real estate in the whole of the UK, where all the celebrities like to buy homes, etc. But there's a real community there. There's still a lot of the original community there. And that's why we will never, ever be removed from those streets of Notting Hill. It is called, I always say to people, the clue's in the name, Notting Hill Carnival, all right? So, and it inspires lots of other carnival events happening, right? As you know, across the UK around that carnival weekend. That's cool too, that's lovely. But there is only one Notting Hill Carnival, and that's why we're there. And that's what this event is about over that bank holiday weekend.
The Voice was born 40 years ago and distributed at the 1982 Carnival. Synonymous relationship. Do you have any memories of The Voice covering Carnival or reading an article about it or anything like that to do in that time?
For me, it's always just been a staple, I guess. We always wouldn't, at the time, we wouldn't necessarily get positive coverage, and this, right? So what was good with The Voice, it was celebrating our culture. It was able to show the lens and to present the carnival as we know it to be, So I think we could always rely upon The Voice in that respect to do a proper coverage and to cover our event from that perspective. So yeah.
We in terms of the fears, right? What I find when I speak to people, that Carnival now isn't Carnival of yesteryear in terms of the route, the way it's controlled and stuff like that. I think that's what kind of feeds the speculation that people are worried about in terms of it going into a park.
Yeah.
How do you see it in the next 40 years? That's a question that I'd like to ask. Not necessarily from a fear point of view, but how do you see it evolving? What does it need to embrace in order to continue?
Yeah, so it's always evolved. That's the first thing, right? And some of those landmark moments would have been, for example, 1973, Leslie Palmer, who was one of the directors at the time, introducing the sound systems. And that's a big part of it as well, because to be more reflective of the Caribbean, so to speak, right? Because, we know that a lot of sound system culture originated in Jamaica, but it's across all the different islands and also the diaspora, right? So you've got the links with America, Canada, and of course in the UK. So bringing that aspect in was a really important thing. And he also kind of designed the route that we kind of have as now in a way. We haven't really moved away from that too much. And the important part about parading, all right, and going past the judging point, huge important thing about keeping it moving. People are on the road, right? And that in itself logistically has been a challenge, I guess, but we do it, we get through, and it's like hundreds and hundreds, thousands of participants, right? Get through and get past it, eventually past judging point. So I think what I've seen and how it has evolved, technology has played a part. When I first started DJing, at the time, I was playing music that was a bit like electronic. It was digital. It was called electro. And I was scratching with 2 turntables and people are like, what are you doing? What's this little kid doing? But that at the time was new. Playing with 2 or 3, we had 2 or 3 turntables. We were playing music that was digitalized. Now, I DJ now with a USB. People, but it's technology, we keep up with it. What also has changed has been the people who've come into London, right? There's different groups have settled, and they too have that discovery of this incredible Caribbean, it's essentially a Caribbean event in the heart of London and the contribution. So we have all the different groups that have settled into London and beyond, and the UK, and people come from abroad to enjoy our event. So I think in 40 years' time, I don't see like the essence of people gathering, dancing, eating good food, being joyful. That's not going to change. The music might be different. It will be different. the dance moves always change. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the latest dance moves are. You know, dance hall music is one of my favorite when it comes to getting the crowd and everyone doing particular moves. I love it. So that dance hall music has always kept up to speed when it comes to like different dance moves. And so I think in 40 years time, you're going to have that too. The fashion, who knows what that, you know, what clothes people will be wearing and things like that. But I am optimistic, like, as I say, all being well, as they say, if life's spare, you know what I mean? I'd like to be there still enjoying, because it's for all ages as well. And I think I would like to see that we've kept the essence of it. So, you know, it's like a 3-part thing. We have the panorama with the still pans, very important aspect. You know, that happens on the Saturday. I'd love for the whole gala, the masquerade, the showing off of the costumes. You don't really get to see that enough. And so it would be incredible if in 40 years time, there was that aspect as well, where we could really find a way to do that, that people over, you know, the period, maybe just after Carnival, because obviously the costumes are kept kind of secret until then, but there's a way, maybe within the week, that people can actually see these costumes. And then to keep the structure, Children's Day on Sunday. That was one of the things when I got involved with the organisers now, those of us who are organising Carnival currently, what attracted me to it was this thing about bringing back the Children's Day, making that more prominent, because that's how I got into Carnival. I was able to DJ on the Sunday, and then I grew as I got older with the sound. So we must keep that. And then of course, all the energy and the vibes that happens on the Monday. I think, you know, it'd be lovely in 40 years time if we could be sustainable, if we're not having to have this conversation about how we'll be funded, that we will be given that respect as well, you know, in terms of, like I said, I don't want to name a particular organisation that funds things in this country, but we really need to be looked at that level, you know, and to be given funding that recognises that. And we're not there. So I would love that to happen, and that people feel more secure. And we could just do this, like, this is what we love. This is what we do with our lives. Wouldn't it be incredible to kind of be able to just do it fully? You know, a lot of the carnivalists a lot of people juggling lots of other things, lots of other jobs, right? To fund for them to be there at that weekend. You'd be amazed. Like, for so many of us, it's all about funding and to be there. So if there was a way to kind of deal with that. Another thing I'd like to see, and again, we're open to people telling us and working with us, we need to be more environmentally sustainable as well. So we're going to have, for example, we've been piloting the electric floats, for example. So to be able to roll that out a lot more. Sound systems, some of us use generators, they're not great for the environment, right? So if we could have more of that, if we could look at how we can find a way to truly recycle as well. Can you imagine all the rubbish that's generated? You know, so all of these sort of things I'm thinking about for the future, I guess, and hopefully we'll have some of these answers, particularly to safeguarding it as an event and for it to be recognised and supported financially, because, you know, that's the crucial thing as well.
Linett Kamala, thanks for your time. It's been really, really fulfilling, actually. There's been a lot there. For those who are watching and listening, is there anything else you want to share just before we part ways?
I just want to quickly say one of the things I'm looking to do, you know, talking about the future, I'm piloting a Sound Systems Futures program. My company, Linett Kamala, I'm just going to sponsor it. Hopefully we'll get other people on board, and I've got a lovely team to help me. And we're going to be like supporting up to 10 young people to really learn about how to run the sound system, what it takes to be put on those, you know, 40 odd different sound systems that we have. And they're attached to various sound systems as well. And they've got mentors. And that's something I'm really excited about as well. For some of them, it'll be their first time that they will be performing. They're not all DJs, but some of them will be performing at Carnival. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what the other mass bands do this year. And just for all of us to return. So thank you very much, Joe. Really love to talk, you know, I love to talk about Carnival. So looking forward to seeing everybody.
Yeah, no, of course. And I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it as well. I think that it's good for people to see those who are on the board, who are filled with as much enthusiasm for the role as you are, because that's clearly coming out in bucket loads. You love it, right?
Yeah, it's life.